Coffee Conversations with Greg J is on. How y'all doing today? Everything good? Everything healthy? Everything positive in these days and time? Making renovations around here, so not our normal set, but it's okay here. Culturally relevant conversations from a global perspective. Our lens today turned to LA City Hall last week. We were shocked and appalled, I guess the words are, that, the council people were caught on tape using racist language, disparaging remarks about Black folks, darker skinned Latinos, Armenians, homophobic. They hate everybody. Man. Nury Martinez resigns. Ron Herrera from the union over there, the County Labor Federation, resigns. Cedillo and the other dude, De Leon, sticking it out. People are camped out in front of their house. It's just all kinds of stuff going on in Los Angeles, and it's such a critical time, and I want to kind of examine this episode. And after we, the people are down there at City Hall, they can't even, conduct their city council meetings because the protesters are thick. The people are not having it, just all kinds of cultures out there protesting. It gives me pause, though. I wonder, yes, we're shocked and appalled. We're shocked, but are we really? And then the question I'm also asking is, how does this episode affect our trust for those of us that are out here in the communities, building coalitions, bridges, cultural bridges, doing the work, unity, love? Does this episode cause us pause towards our trust of one another? Anyway, let's talk about it. Dr. Anthony Samad is here. My good friend. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Brother Greg. How are you?
Doing all right. Just out here trying to make a difference, I think, if we can. Do we trust everybody?
We all can make a difference, but sometimes it's like trying to avoid a tsunami with a teaspoon, you take a little out and you get splashed again, and then you take a little out, you get splashed again. So, that's the struggle in America.
Dang. Man. Well, what are your initial thoughts of what you witnessed last week?
Well, first and foremost, we should never be surprised of the racial tensions in Los Angeles, because Los Angeles never learns its racial lessons. If there is a surprise, the surprise would be that it's not just anti-Black, because we even have Black folk, talking about is anti-Blackness a thing. And anti-Blackness has been around, if there's one thing that you can point to in the post-civil rights generation, and there's one thing that you can point to during the Obama administration, is that backlash is real, and we got Trump because we had Obama. That was the anti-Black backlash. But now to see in the context of political strategy, our Latino brothers and sisters. Now, I don't know Nury Martinez. I've just heard about her. And she was positioned by an African-American, Herb Wesson. And so bottom line is to hear people that we think are our friends, because we know Gil Cedillo and Ron Herrera were supposed to be our friends. Ron Herrera would have never got to be president of the county Fed without Black labor vote. Okay. And Gil Cedillo, we've been tracking with Gil Cedillo, since the 90s, and so he's supposed to be a part of the original Black-Brown conversation. And the real irony here is the way she was talking about dark-skinned Latinos. And you know, if you saw Gil Cedillo, you would think he was Afro-Latin.
Wow.
You know, and he's sitting in the room laughing at himself.
Man.
Essentially.
Man.
You know, I mean, so and all of this is in the context of you having a black woman leading the mayor's race, you know, against a conservative white male, you know, who is dressed up for Halloween as a Democrat. You know,
he did change up, didn't he?
Ain't nothing about him Democrat, okay? But you know, in order to be able to get access to, you know, the political list and those types of things, he had to dress up as a Democrat. You know.
All right.
So
let me bring another voice to this conversation here, Dr. Samad. I'm so glad she blessed me. My friend. Okay, hold on. Let me get my mouse over there. Jazz Mechanic is here. She's the boots on the ground. Jasmine, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Doing all right.
Good morning, Miss Jasmine. How are you?
Good morning. Good morning. I don't know about boots on the ground, but I'm certainly paying attention to what's going on out in the streets.
That's what. Yeah. That's for sure.
As you're supposed to.
That's right.
You know.
Yeah.
Old men for council, young men and women for war. Okay, it's
nice.
It's y'all's turn. It's y'all's turn to get out there and swing like we were swinging. Okay, it's y'all's turn.
Nice. First of all, Jasmine, happy birthday! I know you got birthday coming up or day or something.
It's coming up. It's Saturday. Thank you very much.
All right, good.
Jasmine was 20 for so long. I think she was 20. She was 20 something for like 2 decades. How old are you now, Jasmine?
A lady never tells her age.
Well, I will say this. Greg, let me do a quick sidebar.
How do I look?
I'll see Jasmine often. We found in a garage the tapes of the Knowledge Transfer Summit 17 years ago.
Wow.
You know, we're in the process now of soliciting funders to try to make a documentary of that. And that was in 2007, Greg, where we met with the old heads to try to transfer knowledge. You know, now we the old heads and the youngsters are tipping up on us. But the bottom line is the conversation's almost exactly the same. Mm-hmm. Almost exactly the same.
Yeah, nice stuff. I got some what they say in the Midwest. I got some Dusties, some Jazz Mechanic Dusties too. I got her stumping for then Senator Barack Obama in Leimert Park with an awesome speech. Man, I got that one on video. It was just really, really great. Yes. So Hall of Famer. So Jasmine, you're paying attention to what's in the streets. You're Hall of Famer and everything. What was your reaction to last week's bombshell? What happened in City Hall with these city council folks?
I had a lot of reactions. You know, a lot of times as Black folks, particularly as Black women, they like to put us in a box. And we are just this one thing. Like to the LA Times, I will only ever be a community activist, even though I don't consider myself that. But when I heard the comments, there was a lot of different facets of me that had different reactions, right? So there's the delegate, Jasmine, who is a delegate in the Democratic Party and knows these folks from party stuff, right? There's the former special assistant to Herb Weston, right, who worked with some of these folks. Remembers when Nury was training to be the council president because Herb was leaving, right? And so I have, you know, that. And then there's just, you know, I remember working for Mervyn Dimely, and I believe then Gil Cedillo was in the Senate. I feel like he was in the state Senate at that time. So, you know, and then there's just the feelings of being a Black person, right? Just, you know, so all of those feelings. But I think for me, what was most important was understanding the relationship, the power that those folks sitting and having that conversation had in that room. So for a lot of folks, this was a Civics 101 lesson wherein they just found out that Antonio Villaraigosa wasn't mayor. They just found out who actually represents them on the city council. I mean, a lot of people didn't even know who Nury Martinez, Gil Cedillo, or Kevin De Leon were, right? But they know now. But understanding that that's the council president. These are leaders on the city council. These are people who dictate what districts get what resources. These are people who interact with department heads. And so immediately my mind was like, okay, well, did you direct the LAPD to arrest more Black people? Did you tell this department not to hire Black people? Did you tell that department not to contract with Black people? Did you tell this department not to buy from Black people? Like, these are all the things now that I want to know, because if, you know, anyone who is engaged in this type of work, understand, we always hear complaints from folks in the community about not being able to access the same resources that they feel other communities are getting, right? Like, for example, I went on to the city's website yesterday just to check out the Section 8 waiting list lottery, because I just kind of wanted to see before I talked about it what it was looking like. And I noticed that every single language was there, even Persian, but there was no French, there was no Yoruba, there was no Creole, there was no other African language, which even Google Translate gives you those options. And it just reminded me again about, you know, how invisible sometimes we are, even at the city level, right? We have a lot of African immigrants in the city of Los Angeles. We have a lot of folks who speak French because they come from countries in Africa that were colonized, right? We have folks that speak Creole and Yoruba. And I, you know, talked about that, right? Like, just I have said for many, many years, this is an anti-Black city, and I still believe it's an anti-Black city, even more so now, right? And so, you know, just a lot of anger. There are people who struggle every month to pay their rent, to live here, to pay their mortgage, to live here. I'm sure many of us, let me rephrase that. I'm sure you also, like myself, have watched your friends and family members move to Texas, move to Alabama, because the cost of living here just became increasingly too much, right? And so when I hear comments made, like what I heard on that audio, I think, was this all a part of the conspiracy to move Black people out the city, right? Because when you think about it, and I always tell people this, like, there's only one zip code where the Black population is growing in the city of LA, and that's the zip codes that encompass Skid Row. And all the other zip codes in the city of LA, we're not increasing our numbers, we're decreasing our numbers because we can't afford to live here. We're not getting the resources, we're not getting that. And so when Nury Martinez, who's the president of the city council, feels this way about the Blacks, it tells me, you know, what type of leadership she was engaging in. And even in her resignation statement, which was a piece of work, whoever wrote that for her, I mean, well, they should be out of the job anyway, because I was going to say they need to be fired. But it was really clear, even in the dog whistling in her resignation statement, it was like, what I did for us, for our communities, fight for your fair share. It's like, girl. It was so clear and apparent that she still feels like she's the victim in this situation.
Let me ask you.
She wants the model for young Latina girls, you know, so that they can see that they can be fighters too.
Do you all think this violates trust for those of us out here in the community working alongside our brown brothers and sisters, trying to still, you know, advocate for like you say, equity in our communities? Doesn't this kind of violate trust? I mean, you might be having the meeting in the back of your mind, is like, is this what you really think of me?
Yeah, it does. Go ahead, doctor.
It's like in any relationship. If you have a friend that you know was talking about you, and somebody told you they was talking about you, you'd be like, nah, they wouldn't say that. Then you heard it for yourself. That person could never be your friend again. And if they could, I mean, you could probably be an associate, but you wouldn't trust them. Now, here's the thing about the Black and brown dialogue. You know, Blacks for the longest time have really been their only ally because they replicate everything we do in terms of our social advocacy movements. Okay. Now, you know, when they was talking about they wanted their fair share, and MALDEF sued in the 90s to get the supervisorial district, District 1. so that they could have representation on the board of supervisors. And Gloria Molina was the first Latina board of supervisor. And so what they did was they used this term population parity. Okay. You know, we got this percentage of the population, so we should have this percentage of the pie, which is a flawed theory, because back in the 90s, Black people were saying, yeah, but only a third of them can vote. You know, so what they did was they spent the narrative and got people to stop talking about illegal immigration that all of the other, 20 southern states are talking about. When they're talking about immigration, they're talking about Latinos. Okay. And all of a sudden, the conversation shifts from illegal immigration to compassionate, undocumented. Be compassionate to the undocumented. Okay. But that has had an impact the last 25 years on the city of Los Angeles, a city that was built and configured for 5 million people. The county now has 12 million people. Okay. We have done a decent job of expanding our transit infrastructure and our road infrastructure, but not our housing infrastructure, not our hospital infrastructure, not, ain't enough jobs coming to LA County to accommodate this new influx of people. And so being aligned with the Latinx community has become competition. And they have been modeling themselves after the European since they become the model majority after the 2000 census. So their anti-Blackness has been there for a minute. Remember, I was full tenured faculty at East LA College for 18 years. And they would switch up from English to Spanish in a heartbeat and talk about me in the meeting, thinking that I didn't understand Spanish. Well, I understand it better than I speak it, but I never let them know that, And so there has always been a tension there. There's always been a tension there because it's a competition for resources. To Jasmine's point about the collusion that goes on, we've been talking about, getting minority contracts for literally 50 years. Literally 50 years we've been in this conversation about, getting access to capital, getting, government loans, getting, the type of support that white businesses get. But for the longest, they made us think it was a figment of our imagination. We were delusional. The one that was delusional was Kevin De Leon. He thought that he could pull 25% of the mayor's race because the city is 50% Latino, and he pulled 7%. So that tells you that even his own don't rock with him. Okay. And then he wants to poo-poo on Black advocacy, calling it the Wizard of Oz effect. They sound like 250, but when you pull the curtain back, it's only 25. It looked like 250 to me down there at City Hall. It looked like more than that. The rest of them's out on the street. They could only hold 250 in the chamber. Okay.
Jasmine, let me ask you here, so how do we compensate for that? You're walking these halls and all that. I mean, dang, I guess a shock, it's shocking me in my space. I can't help but wonder, okay, is this how they really think? Are agreements really agreements? Am I going to get backstabbed at some point? How do you compensate as you move about your world, knowing that trust has been damaged?
I mean, look, we know what Maya Angelou said about when people show you who they are the first time, right? Me personally, the older I get, the more I really think about how things affect me, how I truly feel about things. I think, I find we should have a whole nother conversation about this, but this whole aging business, I find to be very, very interesting for me, just personally as a Black woman. And so I, even when this happened, I said to myself, look, this is You're not going to engage in X, Y, and Z, Jasmine. You're just not going to engage in, certain types of rhetoric and certain types of conversations about Black and brown relations, because me, just as an individual, as a person, I just choose not to, right? I have too many friends, family members, loved ones, colleagues who I know disagree, who are Latino, who disagree with what was said, right? And so just like we, as Black people, do not want to be painted with a broad brush, I'm not going to do that to another community. At the same time, I'm not gonna act like those attitudes do not exist. Clearly they exist, right? They exist to the point where two council members feel comfortable enough to stay put exactly where they are, right? Because the only people who can get them up out that seat are their constituents, right? Short of a indictment or them deciding to resign on their own. So clearly, maybe, enough people in the 1st and 14th district do agree with what was said on that audio tape. We have to figure out how to move forward. I've had a lot of conversations with people, and as a matter of fact, someone said to me, well, you've been in these rooms, Jasmine. And I have been in some rooms. I have worked, but what I never did hear was how Black people are going to move forward at the expense of Latino people. Now, we may have sat around and plotted and planned on how to increase Black political power, but I can't recall a conversation where I heard anything about disenfranchising the Latino vote. I can't remember any of those types of conversations about colluding and conspiring to do illegal things to keep or increase Black political power in the city of Los Angeles. Look, we are less than 9% of the population here, right? So we have to build coalitions. We have to work together with other groups. We cannot get much accomplished on our own, right? I think that is very clear. One of the other things that I do want to bring up, because I've been talking about this a lot in the media, and I'm going to continue to, is that the people that we are talking about in this 15-member council, very few of those people even hire Black people to work in their offices.
Right.
Why that's important is because these are people with staffs of anywhere between 10 and 25 people. Okay. It's not like, you're working for a city where you don't even get a staff member, or you get to choose one staff member, or one person works for all 5 of the council members. These are offices where people have 2 or 3 district offices as well as a city hall office, and they don't hire Black people. Paul Corrett has gone through his entire political career without hiring Black people. Nury Martinez, if I recall correctly, she didn't have any Black people on her staff. So that's also something that, and no one can say to me, no one can say to me, well, in my district, we don't have, you don't know who you have living in your district. And these jobs to work for the city for elected officials are not dependent on where you live, right? If a person has the skills, if they qualify for the job, they should be considered. But we have, and no one ever really raises that point. I tell people all the time, go to the websites of these folks. Count how many Black people you see in leadership, count how many Black people you see outside of leadership in their office. Whereas all of the Black elected officials feel like they have to have the United Colors of Benetton in their office. And so even when I worked for Herb, he had everybody under the rainbow in his office, right? Because they're so afraid of being labeled as racist or not hiring a certain race or whatever. They feel they have to have everyone. But that same mentality does not exist to us. I'm like, well, why is that? And that's not just at the city level. Take a look at these state assembly members and these state senate offices and these congressional offices.
Wow, Jasmine, that's quite profound. You're absolutely right. Man, so we're always trying the United Colors of Benetton. That was a good one. Yeah. Always trying to be the United Nations, and not, what it's almost like, as a child of the civil rights movement, my mom would always talk about, you can't be like them, or you can't be angry, you can't hate, you can't be exclusive, or you'll be just like them. She always talk about that, and maybe that's how. But you're right. They don't know who is living in their districts. It's easy, I guess, to assume. I'm still, I'm,
easy to assume.
yeah.
But the jobs aren't dependent on that, right? So as a former staffer, I can tell you, the job application doesn't say, do you live in the district? Like, because if that was the case, then, maybe even fewer Blacks would have, jobs in the city of LA, right? So it's just something for people to think about. You're asking for people to not be racist who don't even hire Black people. You really need to think about that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I also like what you said earlier about, not judging by a broad brush, and I was just thinking as you were describing that, we have to lean on love. And that's really what the whole thing always boils down to. Yeah.
Okay, it's hard to love somebody that don't love you. Okay. Black people need to stop saying that, Greg. Look, they killed the king of love, okay? We still ain't got over it.
I'm with both of y'all on that, because there are some people, look, I keep it real clear. There are some people I will never mess with in this, Black folk, as you and I know, Dr. Sawad, all over the world ain't gonna come, and
I won't sit in a meeting with them. I'd be like, y'all talking about Black unity and all that, but y'all got an informant in this meeting, and I'm not sitting in no meetings with informants. We need to stop that love talk, okay? Malcolm said that makes us soft.
It doesn't make us soft. I refuse, because, like I said, look, you're talking to someone whose first food is Mexican food. I probably eat that more than anything else.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit here and be a hypocrite and act like some of my closest friends. I don't want to use that line, but it's very true. Like I call them my sisters from another mama. You know what I'm saying? Like my girls, like my colleagues, people that I work with. There are people, like I said, who are just as upset and disgusted by those comments. I'm not going to ignore that. I refuse to do that. Are there racist people in the Latino community? Yes, there are in the Asian community. We all have those folks. And what I've noticed, just my opinion, they tend to skew older. I think a lot more of the younger folks are more interested in doing coalitions and working together. I think they have like a different mindset. I saw that a lot when these comments came out, because a lot of people were saying, everybody got the racist, Tio or Tia, and even within the Latino community, they were kind of talking about how they know that like older people in their community harbor these things. Look, I love my grandparents so much. I miss them every day. I am not going to sit up here and act like my grandmother did not think everybody who was Latino was Spanish, and Spanish is a language for the most part. Everybody who was Asian was Oriental. She comes from that generation. She was born in 1921. Okay. And so when we think about our elders, and we understand how hard it was for them, right? I mean, they wouldn't survive in this politically correct language world today. They just simply would be failing because, they grew up during a certain time and they knew a certain way to talk about things. And I mean, I think if I can recall correctly, my aunt's favorite word for white people was white trash. I think I heard that more than I heard Caucasian out of some people in my family. Like so let's not act like, we even in the Black community don't have our issues, our way of talking about things. I think the problem here that everybody needs to understand is you can work for Acme Company and have those feelings if you want to. I'm still going to be pissed about it. But when you're getting paid with public money out of a pot that doesn't say, we're just going to give you the money from people who feel like you do. We'll just pay you out of the taxes of money who feel like you. No, that is money. They're getting paid with money that comes from all of our sales taxes, all of our property taxes, all of our fees and tickets and things that go into that fund that pays out to these people. That's where the problem is. You cannot be in public service. Everyone should know you do not vote on things just for your district. You vote on things that affect all other 14 districts. So that makes what those comments said absolutely unacceptable. And that is why Kevin De Leon and Gil Cedillo have got to step down as well. And that we as Black people, we as brown people who are in solidarity, everybody else who was insulted by those comments are not gonna let that go. Like, we're not gonna be placated with Nury and Ron Herrera resigning. They all have to step down.
You know,
let
you
me say
speak
this, Greg, and I agree with a lot of what Jasmine said. I don't necessarily think the nationalists are older. Every group has their group of nationalists, white nationalists, Black nationalists, Latino nationalists, Asian nationalists. What we tend to ignore is that Blacks and Latinos have a 500-year shared history that predates the European, because slavery was in New Spain before it came to British America. So they were there 200 years before. That's why you have all of the Mayan heads in Mexico. You know, that's what Mexico was called, New Spain, before it became Mexico. But here's the deal. There was some gangsterism going on with Nury Martinez. She was talking prison talk, you know, the kind of talk that, well, if you're not going to hang with your own, you know, fuck him and fuck him too, and fuck you too, you know, which is allowed Gil Cedillo, who looked like the people she was talking about, not to say a goddamn thing. Okay.
Really,
you think Gil Cedillo's Afro-Latin. Okay. Now, but she, you know, there, when you go to the east side and you go to San Fernando Valley, you know, she was talking like what we used to call a hood rat. Okay, she got some gangster in her, and
the memes going around, Dr. Samad. Let me just say the Latina women are handling Nury, and I've seen more than one meme calling her a chola and a whole bunch of other things.
That's right. That's right. And she was into politics.
Right. Her people are handling her.
Okay.
Yes, because she was very gangster.
Yeah.
Good.
Wow. I need to see some of those memes. They call her a chola.
Oh, yeah, and worse.
Wow.
And they got the hair just right on each and every meme, too.
Nice. Nice. You know, we talk about the age, the generational, you know, and I do see what you're speaking of, maybe. However, I think, you know, the more things change, the more they stay the same. There's just the nationalist and the racist, they're coming out from different areas where in previous generations it would be, you know, we know it when we would see it, but now it's just so hidden. It's coming from everywhere. I do agree with Dr. Samad. You could. And this hit me when I was watching the January 6 hearings last week and just watching the videos and everything. There's some young folks out there that are harboring really, really hardcore, you know, racist views. And I just think that we still have to, our younger people have to get ready, you know, even the more. I think everything that we're seeing before us now is reminding us, as my mother used to say, the more things change, the more they stay the same. And the struggle is still the struggle, you know, right? And so, yes, there are more people who are, young people who are more adaptive, talking about coalitions, all of that. I'm around a lot of them in the Arts Council for Long Beach, and it's really a beautiful thing to see everybody trying to, you know, support diversity, inclusion, all of those buzzwords and everything. But the facts are facts. Like, people, there's a lot of hate out there, man. There's just a lot of hate. And, you know, you're right. These people, they represent the whole of the city, because I think the messaging of most cities is to have inclusiveness. And these people are, you know, representing the people and representing the brand of the city, if you will. And to hear them come out with this, and like you said, getting paid by public monies, representing this beautiful international city, man, reprehensible. Why aren't these guys resigning? What's the deal? Are they really just trying to be that gangster? I mean,
well, because they don't have to. Because the city council does not have the power to remove them.
That's right. That's absolutely right. And look, let me also put these gems out there too for people to think on. Had that been in a Black elected official caught on audio, they would have been gone the Sunday that the audio came out. Okay, we wouldn't be having this conversation today. legally, look, I cringe every time I hear people say they should be fired. Oh my God, these are publicly elected people. They cannot be fired.
Right.
You have to resign or be recalled. And let's say that they are recalled. The process that it takes to even get that started, they're still going to be collecting their paycheck. So what we are in right now, the situation where they know what's legal, the council knows what can be done, and so we're sort of at a standoff, right? And so what I've been saying, and I'm going to continue to stand by this until I come up with something better, is that I just need the other 13 council members to refuse to make a quorum. So they have decided that they want to take the meetings virtual for health reasons. And that, I personally am not okay with that, because I feel like that's silencing the people. I have never seen that many Black people in City Hall chambers before. For me, aside from what they were mad about and folks were yelling about, it was just beautiful to see people engaged in civics, right? Something we don't even teach in school anymore. It was beautiful to see people made their way to a building they had never even gone to before, right? When you take the meetings virtually, you silence folks, right? You have the ability to mute people, right? You don't have to call on people. I don't think that in this moment that is the right thing for the city council to do. I think the right thing to do is for members of the city council who are disgusted with their colleagues' comments and the fact and their arrogance and not resigning, that they say, look, we're not going to have a quorum. We will not be able to have a meeting until these people go. We're going to stand in solidarity with Angelenos on this issue. Going on with business as usual allows Gil Cedillo and Kevin De Leon to even more sink into their comfortableness of knowing that this soon shall pass, right? Folks are upset right now, but that things are dying down. It'll get back to normal at some point. I mean, Gil really has no excuse. He just clearly must want the check, and his ego won't allow him to resign because he's already been voted out. Kevin De Leon has plans to run for lieutenant governor in 2026. Now, this man has not met a political office run that he likes, okay? He ran for U.S. Senate and lost, ran for mayor, didn't even make it into the general. Now his current term is up 2024, but he's already got a campaign committee open for Lieutenant Governor 2026 with $3 million sitting in it. He thinks he has a bright political career ahead of himself. As a matter of fact, he thinks he has one that's so bright that he's trying to run for statewide office again. So there's no incentive for him to step down. And as long as the constituents in his district, Boyle Heights, Lincoln Heights, El Sereno, Northeast Los Angeles, downtown LA, don't apply that pressure to him, why would he? I mean, I went by the Black Lives Matter camp out in front of his house in Eagle Rock, and I got a message that Kevin had sent a bunch of Latinos down there to intimidate them and to try to just basically start a race war with them. But it was a beautiful thing to see that they all started talking, and before you knew it, the people that he sent down there switched sides and also called for him to resign. Wow. So it was, it gave me hope that everybody, in his district, I used to live in the 14th district. I was in downtown LA, did my year in downtown LA. Nothing like being in it. And so he's not my council member anymore. So people who are outside the district, yeah, we can yell and scream and do, all say all of these things, but it's really the people within their districts that have to apply that pressure, removing their committees, saying how awful they are in the media. I think people want action. And until we can get that action, I think the rest of the 13 council members who are disgusted, because there are council members who ain't got no problem with what was said. Let's be clear.
Yep.
think the ones that do have a problem with it, and who have been attempting to let the public know that they're on their side should show like they're on their side. And I tell people it is very, very simple. Either you support racists or you don't. It's time to pick a side. This is not this is that shit or get off the pot moment. There is no, I'm gonna be on the fence. I'm gonna go with whatever side, seems to be winning. You either support racists or you don't support racists. And I'm tired of Garcetti and every other elected official talking about our city is better than that. We love everyone. Our city welcomes everyone. Show me.
Right.
Well, I will say this. I concur. It doesn't benefit anyone to advocate for one side or the other. It benefits everyone to advocate for fairness. And this is an opportunity to really address structural racism. Okay, this is an opportunity to address where the city charter is silent. This is an opportunity to put some safeguards in place for when elected officials violate public trust. This is an opportunity to expand the city council and the board of supervisors. If you want to talk about inclusion, because really the reason why this is getting the traction is getting because they splashed everybody. Okay, everybody got splashed.
Everybody they hate everybody.
And so, I'm surprised that Jasmine hasn't brought up the LGBTQT plus community. I think I got
why? Why would I bring it? I mean, why? Because they said that Mitch was a diva and that I think they called Mike Bonin a little bitch or something.
Yeah, she called him a little bitch.
Okay, but you gotta understand. And I'm not saying, okay, first of all, I know gay men that call each other those exact same names.
Right.
But let's be clear. I'm a Black person before I'm anything else in this world.
I got that, Jasmine. But here's my point.
I'm more offended by the other comments. Personally, me. You want to beat a Black baby. You want to beat that.
Right. Let me take that little monkey behind there. Right. Yeah, that was some raw stuff right there.
That was raw.
The reason why it's getting traction, city. Why? Okay.
Let me ask you all this.
Is because they attack Jews and they attack the LGBT because they attack Black people on a regular basis. And they act like, some of that is true. They always find a reason to accommodate the assault on Black people. But when they start talking about other people, all of a sudden.
Kanye lost his bank account, right? That's the kind of swift action I need when it's anti-Black. Kanye lost his bank account with JP Morgan Chase, okay?
Yeah.
There wasn't let's think about it. Let's give it some time. Let's look at all the facts here. Let's re-examine everything 50 million times. It was like, no, he's saying anti-Semitic things. We're going to close his bank account. I don't understand why Black people can't get that level of response. Right. And that speed of response, because there are two things going on there. That's a high level of response. You're closing someone's bank account. That's a big deal. But the speed in which it happened was very quickly. And I always notice with other communities, you get fired off a TV show, get fired off a movie, fired off a job. I mean, it's always very quickly if you are anti-gay or even thought to be anti-gay. Mm-hmm. If you say something anti-Semitic or they think you're anti-Semitic, it is very quick. The repercussions come down fast and hard.
Right.
Except for when it's Black people. With us, we got to step back and analyze and double. Right. I remember with Ed Buck, I heard it over and over and over again. They were on drugs. I mean, they probably died of a drug overdose, but there's no proof it was Ed Buck. And, we need to really... we have to do this and we have to do that. I'm like, really? So, and to me, it's the same kind of situation where when it's Black people, step back,
right?
Time, don't react too quickly. It's like, really?
Yeah. What's the lesson that some of the surrounding cities should be, learning from this experience? I mean, it could happen anywhere. It could happen in Compton, Inglewood, Long Beach.
Well,
What?
it is happening nearly everywhere. I mean, you do have, and if just look at the other states. I mean, that's what this stuff is about. Even Georgia, even Texas. You have people who have high racial sensibilities fronting for racial conservatives in Georgia, and putting Herschel Walker out there, who is really, if there was ever a picture in the dictionary of a big dummy, it would be Herschel Walker. And he's 50-50. He's 50-50 with Warnock, okay? And so it is happening. There are lessons here that people now understand how to manipulate the political system and the political ideologies just by fronting other people. Okay, so you're not going to be opposite of a white male with a hood anymore. You going to be in front of a black female, talking about wearing White Lives Matter shirts and stuff like that. It's that kind of insanity. That's what we're dealing with.
Well, one good lesson is bug sweeping. Just saying, you might want to sweep the room before you sit down and have a racist conversation, and make sure that you're not being recorded. One of the things that I have noticed since this happened is people are like, well, we're gonna have a meeting. Everybody has to leave their cell phones outside of the room. We're gonna have a meeting. Everybody's cell phone has to be off. I find that absolutely incredibly hilarious. I mean, I've been saying, I'll say it here, because people are like, oh, the person who recorded the audio is no friend of black people. We don't know how long that person had that audio. They could have just got it when they released it. It was recorded last year. Doesn't mean the person has had it since last year. None of the people on the recording are up for re-election. Bill Locke is already. So because people are like, oh, the timing, the election's coming up. Yeah, but those people aren't that much in the election. You know what I'm saying? So and I hope they got more audio.
Right. And just I was listening to these two right-wing conservative radio hosts on KFI. I
love KFI. That's my favorite radio station. You were listening to John and Ken.
Yeah, I was. Those dudes are something else right there, boy.
That's all I listen to. You got to know what the enemy is saying at all times.
Yes.
But I will give KFI its props, because of all the radio stations in LA, it's the only one that talks about local politics. Yeah. I'm not trying to hear all that hippity hop all day long. I need to know what's going on in my city. And that radio
station, you ain't trying to hear the hippity hop. You got old, Jasmine. You got old.
Agreed.
I like my hip hop, but the stuff they play today is mumble rap.
Yeah,
and I don't care about all the drugs and sex that much to want to listen to that crap. I want to know what's going on in my city. I want to know exactly what's happening. I had to know they getting rid of my fruit bags at the grocery store.
Yeah. That's an important part of.
I don't want this stuff to sneak up on me.
Right. That's an important part of our media these days. We've lost that part of the art. That's for sure.
We don't talk about news in the way that we should talk about news.
Agree. But I was going to ask you though, because there's the cities here in the region, right? There really are, people are in power now because of coalitions, and these coalitions run deep and historic, and now all of a sudden, LA is a big place, right? Los Angeles is ginormous. It's the queen of the whole region, but these smaller cities, they really, I'll be honest with you. I'm a little leery right now. I'm scared. It's like, man, there's so much coalition building, and we thought we were at a certain level with our black and brown brothers politically. Maybe not, is what I see in this particular essence. And I look around and I wonder, what are black organizations or community advocates in these smaller cities organizing, planning, discussing, at least turning this whole thing over? You're like, what?
Well, they won't be the ones to do it. I'll tell you that. I will say this, and Jasmine knows this because she's been a strategist for a long time. Everybody wants to take a title, community activist. I call them community reactivists because they don't advance anything. They react to everything. It's a scary proposition. The coalitions run deep, and we need coalitions, but we don't need cooperation on 100% of everything. Okay, there are some strategic alliances that need to stay in play for the big picture stuff. Okay, but nobody coalesces on resources. Everybody then goes to their separate camps when we talk about resources, and we become competitors. Okay, that's why the Black community hasn't advanced any further than it has, is because we never know who's in the room. And there is people in the room who is just as diametrically opposed to Black progress as, white people. If you've ever been an advocate in our community or a civil rights leader, you spend half your time fighting your own people, and so now multiply that times 15 different ethnicities, and you don't know who's in the room, and you don't know what their agenda is. Okay, you have to be a lot more strategic because coalitions are not going to go away because nobody has enough of a dominant culture to do what they did in the early years of segregation up through really the 70s. And so that needs to be part of the larger conversation as to how we strategically coalesce.
Back to John and Ken real quick, Jasmine, back to John and Ken there. They were asking a great question, like who recorded this and why? How long have they had it? How much more is out there on the tape? And I was sitting there going, that's a real question right there.
They're not the only people asking that question. There was a full-on article about that made an assumption as to who it was. I really don't care who it was. I'll be right. Take them and the first to contribute to their legal defense fund. That's my position on it right now. I mean, we're worrying about the wrong things. Who recorded it? For all we know, Ron Herrera could record every conversation that happens in his office if someone came upon the tape, came upon the recordings. We don't know.
Which a lot of elected officials do.
Right, and he's not elected, but he is the head of the Labor Federation.
Right, he has to remember the deals he cut.
Yeah, so it could have been his, and that maybe is why he resigned so quickly because he knew he wasn't going to implicate his own self. Don't let me get started on the theories. I have, because I have plenty of it. It could have been the FBI had the office bug and was just like, look, we're gonna figure out a way to get this out. We don't need it for our case, whatever case we're working on. There's different theories floating around out there. I think, again, I'm happy it's out there. I wonder how much more there is. I'm also prepared for the fact that there may be some of us. A lot of people go meet with the head of the Federation of Labor. Let's be very, very clear. Okay, so the conversations that he had with Martinez, Cedillo, and De Leon, he may have some conversations with other folks where he's saying quite the opposite. Or talking about them. Who knows? What's yet to come out. What has come out has rocked the nation to the point where the President of the United States, who very rarely weighs in on local matters, has weighed in. And so that's another reason why I'm like, why does Cedillo and De Leon think that they could withstand the President of the United States weighing in? But just to go back to coalitions, right, before we get out of here, look, Compton had a Latino council member who turned out to be absolutely horrible. Cheated, lost his seat. Now the council is all Black. But when you look at the makeup of the city, it's not all Black, right? Right. And I worked in Compton and Linwood. Linwood had a different attitude and a way that they went about things to get rid of all Black people in power out there, and they succeeded. That, and Linwood is a very anti-Black city as well.
Yes.
Compton, I think is a city to watch because you know, as older generations of Black folks die off in Compton, who are the high propensity voters in Compton as of now, which I think is why you can have a city with the demographics of Compton, but an all Black city council. It's just because of who shows up and votes, right? But as those dynamics shift and change, I think we're going to see a different different demographic in the leadership in Compton, and I don't think it's going to be 20 years from now. So I think cities like Compton are cities that are definitely worth watching, especially in terms of race relations, in terms of just how folks deal with that and the coalitions that are built to move the city forward. Like, I'm going to continue to say this. Cesar Chavez said it best, and I'll just paraphrase. It's just, look, you can be about your people. You can love your people. You can fight for your people. That doesn't mean you have to do it at the detriment of other people.
That's right.
I have tried to be that way my entire life. Yes, I love Black people, and I want to fight for Black people, but I don't do it at the expense of other people. I'm not going to put other groups of people down while I'm trying to represent for my own people. And what we saw was a group of people that were literally banking their successes, their wins off of our losses.
Five profound words, man. Oh, wow. You know, I'm so glad that both of you are able to join me this morning. Just really kind of, you know, take this thing apart and put it back together here. There's a lot in front of us here, you know, and certainly election day is coming up. I got my little ballot over here somewhere. You know, I guess I better fill it in. I can vote now, huh?
3 weeks, 21 days. And yes, there are ballot drop boxes all over the city. Many of the in-person vote centers are going to open up October 29th, 11 days out. And then you'll have the more open up on November 5th, 4 days out. So yeah, it's definitely time to vote.
I will say this, Jasmine, that when I got my ballot, I was like, oh no, low propensity voters ain't gonna vote. It took me 45 minutes to get through my ballot, okay?
That's a real problem, and that is a serious problem because you know, I struggle with this because I never want to tell people not to vote.
Right.
But if you are going to guess because you think the last names sound Black, or you are just going to
right.
One of those moves, I don't think I want you to vote.
Right.
You can't, I tell people all the time, if you don't have the competency or the wherewithal to research what you are voting on, you better find somebody you trust that is going to that will tell you the truth about things. And use them as a guide to help you vote, or just don't, because
become an informed voter.
Because it is, you know, to guess. I mean, to just Brown. Okay, that's Jackson. Okay, you know that. You know, you could be voting for a conservative Black person, or someone who's not even Black. If that's how you're basing your votes, like you need to be informed. And guessing is not gonna cut it. There is too much at stake.
There's too much at stake.
Too much at stake. All right, that's what's up. Everybody vote. Dr. Samad, any last words, real quick?
Well, I will say, continue to take on the issues of the day in a very serious way, because a lot of people are really afraid to tackle it. Continue to bring on informed and honest and direct kind of guests like Jasmine, because a lot of folk are scary out there, Greg. They don't really want to. They want you to tell them the truth, but they really don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
And so we need these kind of platforms in order to continue to educate our community.
Yeah. Thank you so much. The road is long, but we're still at it, and I'm just grateful to both of y'all for just, sharing your time with me coming through here. And
I want to hear Jasmine's last words.
She's coming sipping some coffee with
Jasmine's last words.
Sipping some coffee with the guy. I really do appreciate that. And Jasmine Canick, man, Jasmine for mayor. Any last words, my sister?
Maybe one day. They talking about expanding the city council, so I'm looking at that to see what happens there. But what I will say is that what happens in this moment is going to dictate the future of Black people in the city of Los Angeles. If they are allowed to get away with it, if they are allowed not to resign, then basically we're saying it's open season on Blacks, and you can say what you want to say, but you're not going to face any real consequences. And we really need to think about that because it will happen again. And so it is incumbent upon people. You may not be able to spend the night in front of Kevin De Leon's house, but you can make a phone call, you can send an email, you can call your council member. There are other things that you can send food down there to the people who are. There are things that you can do to support the movement. Everybody can't put their bodies out there, their lives on the line, like some of the activists do, and I understand that. And so, I'm always happy to be support in the background, because I understand that this is something that cannot be allowed to go by. And one of the things, I'll just close and say, I was having a conversation last night with a friend, and I was just talking about how I really felt that Donald Trump really set the stage for all of this, because he didn't set all of those things and was still elected to the presidency. And so when I look at a Gil Cedillo and a Kevin De Leon refusing to resign, I say, okay, here are some men who, in addition to being arrogant, are probably thinking, well, look at what the former president went through, and he was still elected. I'll be able to weather this storm and hold out. And we cannot allow that to happen. I don't care if you live in LA or not. You know what was said was wrong, and you need to figure out a way to lend your voice to the fight to get those two men out of office.
All right. Well said. Well said. Thank you all so much for coming on.
It was great to see you.
Yes. Coffee Conversations with Greg J. This is what we do, culturally relevant conversations from a global perspective. You can get us on our Facebook pages, Coffee Conversations with Greg J. You can go to the website, Beach City Radio, beachcityradio.com. We'll repurpose the audio also, and you can get it wherever you get your podcasts, iHeart, Spreaker, Spotify, all that stuff. Just get it right there. Coffee Conversations with Greg J. Going to Ghana, check out the website, Beach City Radio, beachcityradio.com. Love one another, y'all. Love one another. Make it the best week. Peace and blessings.